Hey, everybody, welcome back to episode 36 of the SoCap Improv Comedy Podcast. My name is Ralph McLeod. I am the owner and artistic director of the SoCap Comedy Theatre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. SoCap.ca, SOCAP. You can contact us at admin@socap.ca. Open to all questions, comments, good or bad. At SoCap, we do classes, shows, corporate events. We're your one stop? Yes, we're your one-stop place for all things improv. Today's episode is in the beginning. So I'm gonna have a little look at beginnings in improv, starting a scene. Um, Two people, three people. But we'll stick with two because it's easier, but all this would apply to three or four. Um, so not to get into like dichotomies of like there's only two ways to do things, but there are, but I'm going to say there's a dichotomy. There are two general ways to approach the beginnings of scenes. And I'm going to use a metaphor of a painter because I've read this about painters. The visual artists tend to come to a canvas with paint and have kind of two ways of approaching it. Again, not to get into dichotomies, I'm sure there are multiple ways, but two general ways. One is to have a clear idea in your head what you want to paint. I'm going to paint this bowl of fruit, or I'm going to paint from a photograph or something that's in my head, but I know what I'm going to paint. The second is to just start making strokes on the page and then discover what's there. A more organic process, a less thought out process, a more in the moment process, I would say, though I'm not a visual artist, but when I think about this in terms of improv, I think the second one is the more artistic way. Now, before I go on any further, this is not about good versus bad. This is a great way, that's a bad way. This is my way. And I have a very strong point of view about this after teaching improv for 3 decades plus. I have found value in how I do this, but that's not to say that any other school is wrong. There's no judgment in this. So coming back to sort of the approach one of beginning, and this is the one that I see like most beginning students will do this. It's taught this way. I was taught this way of starting scenes. And this is the approach of laying on of information or exposition. So if a performer might step out and say to another performer, "Hi, Dad, I'm home from school," or "Hello, sweetheart, what do you want to make for dinner?" So these are expositional phrases that sort of set the beginning platform, who, what, where, opening conditions, act one, whatever phrase you like to use. It's an expositional way, and it's a declarative way. And in fact, there's a very popular drill that I used to do and would teach. Like this is 20 years ago, where you would do a line. You know, you'd have like a left side and a right side, and character A from the right side would step out, and they would have to in one line establish a who, like "Hello, Dad, I'm home," or just "Hello, Dad" would be enough. And then character B would step out, and then supply the where. "Welcome home, son. How was school?" And then character A again would then have the third line, and they would have to decide and dictate like what's going to go on. Like, "Oh, school was great, Dad, but I've got my first date this weekend and I need to ask your advice." And see, in there you got in 3 lines, you've got a nice little setup, and it's laying on of information. We work together and we build something. And there are multiple ways you can do it that way with 3 characters or 2 characters, sorry, back and forth, each adding on little thing. So it was a drill. Or one character might just step forward and say, "Well, sweetheart, here we are in Paris, walking down the Champs-Élysées on our honeymoon." That gives you the same kind of idea where one character states it or 2 characters state it, but it's a declarative, it's expositional, and it sets the stage. And once again, in no way disparaging that, because the definitely the value of it is it gets everyone on the same page. It builds a context quickly, and it kind of overcomes very quickly that sort of uncertain phase where everybody's like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on," and it can make people very hesitant to make suggestions, or yeah, in some cases, it makes people not want to listen because they're just focused on, oh gosh, I need to get something out so that we know where we are. So it has value, and it definitely works and gets people on the same page. Um, and but for me, it's either a solo act or it's an act of invention where people are going in their head and they're not focusing generally on each other. They're sort of just trying to get a grip on what's going on. And it cuts them off from a lot of the other stuff that might be going on. Like if I've already got in my head that you're mom and I walk out and I say, hi, mom, but you in your head were thinking like I'm your partner. Well, now there's some problems going on in our brain that we've got to set. We've got to be, and again, all can work. But for me, it's a solo creation. It's invention, and it it it's it keeps the audience outside. So my approach is much more like that painter who steps to an easel and sees a blank canvas and puts a mark on it and goes like, "Oh, that looks like something. Let me see what's over here." And in that way, when we begin an improv scene, you're much more like an explorer or a detective, an investigator, an archaeologist. You're coming in to try to find out, well, who am I? Who are these people? Where am I? What is this whole thing look like? And in that way, you're much more open. You're much more in touch with all of your surroundings and the people, the environment around you. You start seeing the world in your mind's eye, and you become much more mindful, which makes people want to watch you more. So in this case, the approach number two is the the exploration. You discover the scene and uncover the reality that we didn't know when we sat down. So this is my preferred method. So instead of inventing dialogue and things that will create a who, what, where quickly, it's more about who am I? Who are you? And how do we start with feeling? So it's less thinking and more feeling. What does this feel like? When I come out on a stage and I look at you and we make eye contact, what information do I derive from that? So rather than me dictating who I am and who you are, I feel what this feels like. Eye contact is very powerful. So I walk out and you might look at me and I might get from that there's a bit of anger or caring or something or love, and I want to think about, well, when I see that, what do I feel? If you feel hostility towards me, I might feel mischievous hostility towards you. So I'm focusing on how I feel. I'm focusing on what my partner is giving me. I'm focusing on the environment where I am, how I'm feeling. Maybe I've had a bad day and I walk and I want to not like use that to um, pull up a lot of things, but I don't want to cut myself off from myself because I'm my muse, right? So like the pain. So how this works. So you walk on stage, notice your partner, notice the feeling that you have, and then develop that. And then based on what you start saying, which is more, it's less about like trying to very quickly dictate. It's like, but once you feel it, it's like, oh, you're mad. Say that. Oh, you're not having a good day. That's a great opening line. You're not having a good day. And they'll just agree. No, I'm not. In fact, I'm having a crappy day. The big yes. And they're like, oh. And then you can feel like, well, how do I want to respond to that? Well, I could be like, well, great. That's good. I'm glad you're feeling it. I'm glad you're having a bad day. Or, hey, I'm sorry. Do you want to talk about it? So you start piecing this together, and I was like, well, who do I feel like? Okay, if I'm being sympathetic, I feel more like someone who likes them. If I'm being hostile, maybe I'm someone who's either not a good person, not a nice person, or maybe I'm justified in feeling this way. I want to figure that out. So here I am. I'm more of a detective, an archaeologist. I'm uncovering what's going on. And we work together moment to moment to build something. So, why is this powerful? Number one, it removes a lot of pressure from us to invent something funny, smart, interesting, which a lot of us do. We walk on a stage and of course, we want to be liked. We want to impress people. That is very, very difficult. And in that desire, it leads us to make choices that push the audience even further away by trying to be interesting. Interesting is a double-edged sword, and I wouldn't say don't do it, but it comes with certain um, expectations, certain requirements if you're going to be very inventive, very original, very interesting or weird, which a lot of us want to be because we think that's going to be funny. It also builds genuine connection with your partner. You're all you have is the other person, and you work hard together. And this act of discovery, of figuring out, oh, when we started, I didn't know that I was, your partner. And today's the day that I wanted to tell you that I don't want to be your partner anymore. Didn't know that when I stepped up, but here I am, and here I am in this moment that we have built together and discovered it together. Uh, it also keeps you very present in the moment and grounded. Um, so less panicky, more tuned in, dialed into the moment. You are serving the moment, not serving your self-conscious desires. It invites the audience into the moment with you. If you are relatable as you build it, they come along for the ride. So it's less like they're being told something, and they are now experiencing something because it's a real moment happening. It's not just words, it's a moment. Um, your silence is very useful because you take more time. You're not trying to rush. I mean, you might be trying to rush, but you're not rushing. You're slowing down. And I have to tell you, stillness is very watchable. If you walk out on stage and you look out over the audience, and in your mind's eye, you see mountains and trees and blue sky and clouds and birds, and you inhale and you smell the fresh air in your mind's eye, that's very watchable. That's way more watchable than you walking out improvising the greatest opening line in the history of improv. So this is obviously very difficult to do, especially for new people. Like after you get used to it, it becomes much easier. But it does have certain challenges, right? It does require trust. And it requires you to be okay with uncertainty and stillness. And while those are very tough to at the beginning, it will make you more of a robust improviser. It also is great at being out in the real world, right? These skills, like all the skills that I teach, are so applicable to being out in the real world. Whether you're at a dinner party and you're doing small talk, or just meeting new people, you know, and finally, like once you learn to do this, panic subsides, overthinking subsides. You exist in a moment. You're not being distracted. You're existing. Okay, so that's all I want to talk about today is beginnings. If this sounds interesting to you, come and work with me because I do this a lot because and the students that whenever I do this a lot, and students experience some of the exercises I take them through, the laughs that we get are very deep. So yeah, so if you hear something you like, come and take a class with me or come and email me and talk about it. My work focuses mainly on exploration, connection, shared discovery, agreement, making choices, developing a point of view, all those good things that are great, not only on stage, but also in the real world. Anyway, thanks very much for your time. Tune in next week for another episode, episode 37, and take care. Oh, bye.